Welcome for your trading lesson of the day. If you're a trader, you have been in a slump. If you are in any kind of risk-taking or fast-paced environment, you know things aren't going to go 100% right, but when they go wrong, they can start to snowball. So how do you break a slump? There's nothing worse than feeling like you're in a rut and every trade you make has a deleterious effect on your overall P&L. So when you see that start to happen, you've got to take the right steps. It's all about identification. I cannot say this enough. If you're in a slump, if you have a rut of bad trades, you've got to figure out why. It's not as simple as my trades aren't working. If the end of your analysis is my trades aren't working, I give up, then you shouldn't be in the game. You've got to have that dedication to your craft to figure out what is going wrong and how am I going to fix it. So, if you've accepted the fact that you're in a slump or you've had a couple of slumps, the next thing you got to be able to do is say, what are the most common things for me? What is causing me a problem? The number one reason that I have seen traders in slumps is very simple. You're allocating capital to things that don't work for you in the first place. So if you're not tracking not just the symbols that you trade, but the actual trading setups that you do, and making sure that you're only taking things that are positive for you or putting capital to ones that are positive, that is your number one step. So think about when I lose on a trade, what is going wrong? I'm going to show you guys a little something for a trade, and ultimately, it wasn't one that worked. So first off, NVIDIA, here it is. It's making a power move to the upside. Trend ended up overall to the downside. So I'll give you an idea. It bounced once. I took a reload, and it did not work, and it curled. So bouncing off of VWAP right in here, it worked the first time for a couple of dollars, scalp into 15s, into the 20 level. But then when I reload it, it ends up losing. Now, I've got to be able to separate what are those two different trades. One of them is a breakout trade pulling back into VWAP and bouncing off VWAP, good to go the first time. Lower high gets put in and it doesn't hold. Those are two separate trades. One of them is with the trend. The other one is trend is not with you when it puts in that distinct lower high. So you've got to be able to differentiate between that and this. Like the thing about Pan W is, okay, well look at this setup. Are these two things the same? No. Pan W, when I took that trade, it's still a breakout trade that bounces off VWAP for a second salvo to the upside. It follows through. And so if you look at that secondary play, what did I not do on Pan W here? I don't get in this second time when it puts in the lower high. Why? Because that is not the same as the VWAP bounce before. That initial VWAP bounce and that second VWAP bounce off the lower high, those are two separate things. Notice it didn't work in NVIDIA. If you just categorize that as, oh, I'm taking VWAP bounce trades. Okay, if that's your one and done, you're going to miss out on the why that trade didn't work. It's because the first bounce good, but when it put in a lower high and started to show you a downward trend, that second bounce not so good. So identify what is working and what isn't, and put the capital towards that first setup when it's still showing you that good edge. You're still with the trend, it's that initial bounce, but that one where it's trending against you and you're doing that rinse and repeat, that can just be stubbornness working in. So that is an example of differentiating between two trades that might look the same, but when you are allocating capital, you've got to recognize they're different. The number two reason why traders tend to be in slumps or find themselves in a lot of trouble, it's averaging in to losing trades. There's no question about it. Everybody knows this. If the trade is working, it's easy to see. If you like an idea and it goes against you and it's showing you signs that it's wrong and you're just adding to that position, that is a simple reason that you can be in a slump, because it's a little bit of a sense of stubbornness. So what you want to be able to look at here is, why am I in a trade? What is your reason for being in a trade? That's the first thing you should always ask yourself. And then after that, what is going to get me out? Where am I wrong? Because if you can't identify that, it's going to give you reasons to just say, take more, take more, take more, I'm right, the market's wrong, and then you're gonna find yourself in trouble. This is an obvious thing when somebody is in a slump because you start saying, whatever, I'll just get that hope set up. So what does it look like to be wrong on a trade, but have an idea where you're going to be wrong? I'll quickly show you one. Again, I want to be talking about losing trades, not winning trades, because when you're breaking out of a slump, you've got to identify a way not to lose and a way to lose less. What is my reason for taking ARM here? So it kind of looks like there's an upward trending stock. Why would you want to go short? So as this one is heading to the upside, I'm looking very specifically at the previous day's lower highs, double top at 135. That is my reason for looking into the short trade. I've identified my reason for being in. There is your spike, shy of the 135 and a little bit of weakness. It's a bit of a bullish setup. I do miss the initial entry. I can argue that that would have worked if I sat in front of it. Fair enough. You might have got a dollar trade out of that, but let's be real. It's still trending up as it goes into that level. So here's 2 points. One, I had a reason to get out, so I got out. Now, if I got this initial entry and was averaging into it, would it have worked out? Sure, it absolutely would have. But if this continues to go higher, remember, if it breaks away from that 135 and I don't identify a new reason to be in that trade, then you've just got to be able to take the L. And the reason I like this example is identify point one, 2 different styles of trade. Because if I like that 135, that doesn't work. But suddenly, what ends up happening here? That 135 sets up again. So you can differentiate between this trade being, I can see why that went wrong, but I cut my losses, to I identify why that 135 level could look at it good, and I can jump back into the trade over here without having to worry about this thing going into 140. So a lot of this comes down to analyzing your mistakes and not ignoring them. Recognizing where you are wrong, what you can do differently, and be honest with yourself about that. At the end of the day, there's only one tried and true thing when it comes to being profitable. Lose less than what you are making on your losing trades. If you are a trader, it's not about how much you make on a trade that is going to define your career. It's going to be when you are wrong and when you have a bad day, what does that look like and are you able to limit it? That's the reality. It's not always the most glamorous way to look at things, but it's just the truth, and it's the real deal. If you cannot limit losses, you are going to constantly find yourself in slumps. You are going to allow your good decisions, which there will be good ones when you learn how to trade and find setups. They will be there. If you put the time and effort in, you read that tape, you're going to find those opportunities. But if you can't find a way to limit your mistakes, then you're going to find yourself in a world of hurt. And I hate seeing that happen to traders. So understand, how much does it cost me to get those wins? If it's costing you more when you lose than your wins, you've got to go back and take these small steps to limit those losses and end those slumps. Identify that you're in a slump. Separate the types of trades that you are making, not just all trades on the same stock. Get into the nuances, the reasons for every single trade, and separate them. What is really not working for me? From there, try not to average into losers. Have yourself a reason for getting in and a reason for getting out. Once you have no reason to be in, get out of that trade. Do not fight it. That's what it's all about. That's a real deal. Break the slump if you can. But you've got to be diligent and honest with yourself if you're going to be able to do it.